Hello and welcome everybody tuning in today. I'm Billy Mitchell, Vice President of Content and Community for FedScoop, and it's my pleasure to be joined today by Mike Libutti. Mike is the Partner and Defense Industry Leader for IBM Global Business Services. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Billy. I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to our conversation in conjunction with IBM's ThinkGov 2021 Summit. And I want to start with a conversation about the transformation in the public sector, and specifically want to ask you, how has the rate of transformation in the public sector accelerated over the past year, and what do you think drove that?
So, certainly I see it increasing, especially over the past year. And it's easy to point back to COVID as the big reason why, right? Because of course, everybody has transformed their ways of working over this past year plus. But I would honestly say, I think it started even just prior to that. And I'd really sort of earmark two major reasons why. I think the first of which is with the introduction of applying emerging technologies like AI, for example, there's an incredible amount of movement in transformation that happens right out of the gate. So the first application of those technologies to a business process or a process within a mission set of a client really gets you a lot of that proverbial low-hanging fruit and kind of moves that transformational needle very quickly. So I'd say that's kind of point one. Point two, I'd liken it to expanded use of more nimble acquisition vehicles in public, in particular using things like OTAs or other transactional authorities. I feel these vehicles really engender a fair bit of transparent conversation and collaboration between clients and industry. And by virtue of that collaboration, you're able to get to a point of understanding a lot more quickly than you otherwise would, to be able to apply these emerging technologies and create a solution a lot more quickly. And it also really shortens the acquisition cycle timeline such that you can bring those capabilities to bear even more quickly than you would have in the past. So I'd say, the combination of those two things, the initial application of those technologies and the ability to acquire them more quickly in the public market has really driven transformation.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that acquisition piece is something people don't talk a lot about, but I think it's very important. What about open hybrid architectures? How have they become more effective for public sector missions over the recent months and years?
So, this notion of sort of a heterogeneous architecture versus a homogeneous architecture is almost kind of a myth, because I don't think we'd ever get to this homogeneous state where you're going to have a single cloud or a single application. I mean, you're always going to be in multiple clouds or on-prem in this hybrid architecture. You're always going to have a multitude of applications across varying levels of maturity. Where I think this open hybrid approach comes into play is again in accelerating the transformation, because it allows you to build out capability in components or essentially microservices. And in doing so, it allows you to tackle a particular problem set and create a solution for that, and then in turn be able to pivot very quickly by virtue of leveraging that open architecture to reuse some components that you need to solve an adjacent problem, or perhaps a wholly new problem by taking current components of the architecture and applying and plugging in new components of that architecture to completely pivot. And you're able to do so in a really agile way that, again, truly drives the pace of transformation. It certainly makes it a lot faster than it would otherwise be.
That's great. So we've heard a lot of buzz in recent years about a number of different emerging technologies. I'd be curious to hear on this topic of emerging technology, which one or which few, count as many as you'd like, but which do you think has the greatest potential to revolutionize service and mission delivery?
So I'll cheat and I'll give you two that I think are going to be really impactful. First is certainly artificial intelligence, and very buzzwordy for sure to say that. But the reality is that as you apply artificial intelligence and machine learning, again, to whether it be back office business processes or to the mission and the challenges therein for each of our clients in public, you're seeing an incredible and instant impact. When you talk about automation, I mention that also because the ability to link the two emerging technologies is really sort of the underpinning of what we refer to as at IBM as intelligent workflows, right? And so the ability to take a look at a process end to end, right, whether that be a business process or some mission process, dissect that process, understand each step, and look at where you can insert artificial intelligence to create a prescriptive or predictive model to gain additional insight, and where you can drive efficiencies and enable automation by inserting something like robotic process automation allows you to then really truly automate and transform a process from end to end. And so, the ability to link those technologies together and apply them in kind is really truly transformational, because it's really looking at the process wholesale.
So Mike, let's close out with a question on data. You sort of mentioned the intelligence piece in that last question, but I'd love to hear, how can public sector organizations more effectively use data to drive a cognitive enterprise of sorts that delivers faster intelligence, accelerates workflows, and empowers people to focus on higher value mission work?
So, we have all this data, right? And we've been, reasonably successful at getting some insight from that data. But as we truly look at transforming the way we do business, the way we perform a mission in the public market, we really need to understand how we're going to take that data and extract the information we need, and then really automate the response to it. So it's really about now taking not only the data and the insights you can garner from that data, but then enabling the automation of the response to that data. And once you can do that, you're really going to drive efficiencies into your processes. You're going to have better processes ultimately, and you're really going to drive your transformation at a faster pace.
Mike, it's been a great pleasure catching up with you today. Thanks so much for your time and responses, and I hope we can do it again soon.
Yeah, Billy, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.